take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss when will Jesus bring the pork chops. You'll find out right after this. George Carlin, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, talking with George Carlin. Very funny, by the way, George. Always enjoy it. Interesting title of the new book, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? Number 2 next week on the New York Times bestseller.
Number 2.
Now, explain the title. What does that mean?
It was just a title that I thought was an interesting sentence. I have a kind of a little file of interesting titles. Another one is A Cat Will Blink When Hit with a Hammer, and I couldn't decide. But I chose this because it offends all 3 major religions, plus the vegetarians. So, you can't beat that.
Now, my favorite thing, now this book has been banned at Walmart. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Why
Which I'm so proud of.
Why?
I'm so proud of.
What is it? I'm trying to think. Here's the cover. Can we show the cover?
The cover is the Leonardo da Vinci Last Supper.
Right.
And I told him, I says, airbrush Jesus out and drop me in. With an empty plate and a knife and a fork, prison style, you know. Right. And so Walmart didn't like the cover. They banned John Stewart's John Stewart. I want to call him John Daly all the time. John Stewart's book because he had nude Supreme Court justices. So they just had. They're part of that.
But let me ask you a question. If you take Jesus out of the photo, isn't it just 12 guys having dinner?
That's right.
How is it offensive?
It's just supper.
It's just supper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're making fun of Jesus. He's not in the picture.
You got to talk to them. But I'm happy because it's a badge of honor, and it'll just create more talk, and that's great.
Yeah, okay. All right. Now, let me ask you about something else.
Certainly.
I know you're at the MGM Grand. Is it next weekend?
I start this Thursday for a couple of weeks. My last shot at my last MGM Grand in Vegas.
Now, didn't you get fired? What happened?
Yeah, I got fired. This is great. I got fired 1969. It's 35 years ago. I got fired, and a lot of people know that story. Got fired from the Frontier Hotel for saying ass. And then a little later, a year later, they took me back, and I got fired for saying a longer word. 4 letters, ends with a T, begins with an S. So I said that I got fired for these 2 things. Now they couldn't. That's not bad anymore. Right. So now they fired me for being dark. He's too dark. I thought, well, turn up those lights, you know. But
what does that mean?
I don't know. You know how they talk about a movie that's an interesting movie and it's rather on the dark side. Well, I have a piece of material about suicide. It's a great, funny piece. It's 20 minutes long. But apparently the corporate people, they get letters, you know, and he's too dark. He's too dark. So I'm going down the street. I'm going to get down to the Stardust. I'll be working there starting next year, but not yet. I got 2 weeks left at the MGM. And get down there to Stardust and capitalize on being fired from one place. You know, I'm always trying to use these things in my favor.
Well, you've been fired a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Different things.
Oh, yeah.
Go back to the beginning of your life. First time you've been fired.
Well, fired, you know, that implies a job, and I've rarely had jobs. But I quit. Anything I hadn't, when I was a kid, anything I didn't quit, I got kicked out of.
Oh, okay.
That's the same phrase I would use. I got kicked out of 3 schools, the choir, the altar boys, the Boy Scouts, summer camp, and then the Air Force. That was the capper. But they were all for cause. In the Boy Scouts, I was making fun of an Indian dance that a kid was doing. They kicked me out of there. The choir was interesting. We were doing the Carol of the Bells, rehearsing for midnight mass.
Right.
And I was a soprano, and we were in the soprano section, and we were supposed to go, ding, how they shine, oh, how they shine, oh, how they shine, oh, how they sound, oh. And then the ending is ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, and I went, done. Mr. McDonald threw the choir book at me. I ducked and hit Jeremiah Supple in the neck, and he turned into an alto.
Supple?
Yeah, he became an alto that day.
Really?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So that was one of the altar boys. I stole a camera. I was always stealing when I was a kid.
Stole a camera?
Yeah, stole a camera.
As an altar boy?
I was an altar boy. Dame Kalitivica, Juventud Mem, Quarry, Mary Police, Squire, Tishan, Shadow, Duma, Fleet, Man, Amicus, tell you that. But I got fired for stealing a camera. Let's see, what else are we talking about here?
How about school? You got kicked out of school. Why'd you get kicked?
I got kicked out of school. In the 8th grade, Dennis Mulligan and I went into the visiting locker room at a basketball game in our school.
Right.
And we stole money out of the pants of the players. They were in their shorts out on the floor, and we went through their pockets.
Did you think that was unreasonable?
No, I guess
you act like that.
Well, a detective came to my house and they did that whole thing about your friend already told us, and they told Dennis the same thing, and nobody had said anything.
Right.
So we both said, oh, yeah, well, okay, you got me. So he kicked me out of there. But the nice one was the Air Force. I was in the Air Force. It's a 4-year enlistment.
Right.
I left after 3 for being a non-productive airman. That's the official title. Now, I was in a very select career field, and I had a high Q score. I was a real smart kid in school, by the way. I quit high school in the 9th grade because they weren't teaching anything I needed to know.
Right.
I couldn't find anything. You know, they're trying to teach me how to prove that 2 angles are congruent, and I want to learn, you know, how to be a disc jockey, how to be like Bob Hope, how to be a comedian. Yeah. So I quit, but in the Air Force, it wasn't working out. It really wasn't. I had 3 court martials. One was for falling asleep on guard duty, which is a nice charge. I was in SAC. I was in a really serious field, electronics repair. I was helping keep the peace in America between Korea. You'll notice that after the Korean War and before the Vietnam, that's when I was in, Russia did not mess with us.
You know, I never looked at it that way.
That's when I was in the Air Force. They said, Carlin's in there, don't do anything to rile them up. So, but I got kicked out of there. But I got kicked out a year early. Got my full pay and allowances. Got an honorable general discharge under honorable conditions. Right. And we parted ways. And I hocked my overcoat downtown for $8. That's what you do when you get out of the service. You hock your uniforms.
Is that right?
Yeah, in the Air Force.
Well, I want to talk about, because there's other things in. You know, I read this book, and there's nothing offensive, just funny, just things other people don't say. One thing I like, you mentioned about athletes when they look skyward after they make a touchdown.
Oh yeah. All this stuff and this and everything, like, you know, like, I really don't believe in divine intercession, you know. These people who pray for football games in Texas, both sides pray before every game out loud, these high school games.
Right.
And one side doesn't get what they want. This is always the case with prayer. 50% of the time you get, 50% you don't. They never talk about the ones that don't get their prayers answered. And if you don't get your prayers answered, you say, well, what about God? You say, well, it was God's will. You know, they fall back on that's God's will. He didn't think I should have that. I said, well, why pray for it? If he's going to do what he wants to anyway, why bother praying in the first place? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Folks, it's a very funny book.
Thank you.
When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? George Carlin. George, thank you very much. Very insightful as always.